Stranger Things Season 5 has been getting a lot of praise from both fans and critics. Now, this isn't surprising. After all, it's one of the most famous shows of all time, and it's almost taken a decade to finish. So there's a lot of anticipation around the final season, which I believe has blinded people from the truth. Which is that Stranger Things Season 5 is 10 pounds of crap stuffed in a 5-pound bag. Now, I understand that people are going to think that I made this video because I either want to rage bait for clicks, or because I can't enjoy anything. But let's take off the rose-colored glasses for a minute and try to look at this story and characters objectively. So strap in as I take you on a journey that dispels any notion that Stranger Things 5 is peak cinema. Chapter 1. Die already. Now at this point, Stranger Things has become infamous for being unable to kill any major characters. In fact, the Duffer Brothers have developed a writing technique to avoid any major deaths while giving the illusion of consequences. It's called Introduce a Likeable Character for the Audience to Get Invested in that has no real connection to the protagonists, and then murder them. It's a working title. First it was Barb, then Bob, then Billy, and finally, Eddie. Now these characters all have similarities, which is that they are overly sympathetic, likable, and have no real value to the main story. Sure, they all have a connection to one character in the group, but they are largely unknown to the rest of the cast. For example, nobody gave a shit about Barb except Nancy. Even her own mother seemed to not notice that she went missing. Of course, Joyce was dating Bob, so she was pretty sad when he got ripped apart, but I'm pretty sure that Hopper was excited about it. After all, he wanted to ride Winona, if you know what I mean. Then of course, punk-ass Billy bit the dust in Season 3, but Max was the only one who cared, and even then, she didn't even really like him. Oh, I guess Karen probably did. Out of all these characters though, Eddie was the most disappointing. Despite the fact that he spent a lot of time with the main characters, he didn't actually connect with anyone besides Dustin. I mean, sure, he seemed kinda chummy with Steve at one point, but it didn't really get past one conversation about Nancy. And on a rewatch, it's weird that you actually never see anyone react to Eddie's death besides Dustin. Like, I don't think Nancy, Robin, or Steve for that matter, are losing any sleep over this guy. And this created a lack of tension in the story, because no matter what happened to the characters, or how dire their situation may have seemed, there's no chance of them dying. The worst thing that would happen is that we would lose our emotional bait character, and that's it. I mean, for fuck's sake, Max literally died last season, and through some magical bullshit, Eleven was able to resurrect her. Son of a bitch! So coming up on the final season, I had some hope that the Duffer Brothers would be able to break this cycle, as there was no reason to keep these characters alive. They could kill some people off, and it would have no bearing on future storylines. So why not, right? And in the second episode, it seemed like they were actually going to commit to this idea. We saw Karen and Ted get taken out by the Demogorgon, and for a moment, I was genuinely satisfied. I mean, hey, it's not a main character, but at least it's someone. Oh no, they're still alive. Doesn't this seem like a missed opportunity to create some consequences and establish Vecna as a real threat? The Demogorgons were once feared and terrifying creatures, but now they fail to kill angry mothers? Jesus Christ, how many times are you gonna let that wino stab you with that bottle before you do something about it? And granted, this scene would have been far more forgivable had it actually been Karen's last stand. But nope, she's doing pretty good, all things considering. I mean, she was gutted like a fish, but then again, it's Stranger Things, so that's like a minor injury in this universe. We also see Hopper, Joyce, Mike, Lucas, Will, and Robin almost get killed, but of course they are saved right at the last minute. This was especially annoying with Hopper's supposed sacrifice in episode 4. So Hopper and Eleven have broken into the military base in the Upside Down in order to kill Vecna, who they think is being held there. Eleven is injured, so he tries to allow her to escape while he bravely goes off and kills himself with a bomb that he for some reason has had strapped to his chest the entire season. Wait, didn't Hopper get into a fucking car crash and then get into a massive fistfight with a soldier? I mean, I'm no bomb expert, but I wouldn't want to be shaking one around too much. Let alone while I have one strapped to my chest as I'm tackling guys through glass windows and wrestling monsters. But anyway, so Hopper gives a farewell speech to Eleven where he tells her he loves her and yada yada yada. Eleven is crying and it's all very emotional and it certainly looks like he's gonna die. But when we cut back to them afterwards, he's fine. Turns out he didn't need to kill himself at all because it was just that fucking chick from the worst episode in the show. Yay!
What the fuck? What the fuck?
So that is twice now that we've had a big climactic moment where Hopper is ready to blow himself up in order to kill the big bad, but nothing happens. On another note, why did he think he had to die here anyway? Why didn't he just throw the bomb into the room and walk away? I mean, if he's able to create an explosive, then he could have created a remote detonator. Or why not just shoot these speakers that stop Eleven from using her powers? So then she could use her abilities to set the bomb off at a distance. Ah, fuck it. The point is that this show seems to have a chronic issue of trying to emotionally bait the audience, only to do a fake out before any real consequences happen. They want their cake and to eat it too. They want the emotional payoff of a character's death, but they don't actually want to kill them. And supposedly there's going to be some big deaths at the end of the show, but I'm not sure if I'll really care at that point. We have been teased and essentially lied to so many times that it's become exhausting. But this just leads us to the next problem. Chapter 2. Vecna is all steak and no sizzle. I like nothing about this character or his function as the show's main villain. First of all, I will acknowledge that he looks a lot better in Season 5. Unlike in Season 4 where he just looked like a mangled eel. And his reintroduction scene almost worked. He comes in with a bang, he kills a bunch of soldiers in brutal ways and shows off his true power. Great! But then just before he can do any real damage to the main characters, he walks away.
Wow.
Vecna is one of the worst villains I have seen on television, and I'll tell you why. So on a writing level, a villain needs to be intimidating, not just in appearance, but also in practice. They must be a formidable force that establishes themselves by initially defeating the protagonist, and in doing so, forces the hero to grow and change in order to overcome them. This is established by what the antagonist takes away from the main character, and by attacking the protagonist's greatest weaknesses. Whether it's hope, safety, innocence, or control, it's this loss that becomes the driving force behind the hero's motivation. All of this works together to push the story forward. By pressuring the main character, the antagonist forces them to reveal their true selves through making difficult choices. A good example of this is Mr. Smith from The Matrix. When we meet Smith, he's established as an extremely powerful and intimidating threat that the heroes are afraid of. He is someone that is a constant threat both inside and outside the Matrix. He captures Neo, he corrupts Cypher, and he thoroughly beats Morpheus. In every direct encounter with Smith, the heroes are defeated, often with major consequences. But due to these constant losses, Neo is forced by desperation to grow and strengthen his resolve. Without Smith, Neo would not become the One. Even the ending of Stranger Things Season 4 and The Matrix play out fairly similarly. Both main characters must enter a dream world to rescue their friend. They fight the main villain and lose, only to then be brought back by a confession of love from their romantic interest. They are then able to find the strength to overcome the villain, and by the end, someone has been resurrected. However, the obstacles Neo has to overcome are greater because Smith is a far more dangerous antagonist on both a physical and a thematic level. Vecna, on the other hand, isn't established as a danger and is instead treated more as an irritating speed bump. After all, he can't even take on Eleven when she was like 7 years old, so that immediately puts him at a low tier in terms of challenge. And of course, the main characters defeat Vecna and the Mind Flayer every time leading up to Season 5. So he never defeats the heroes, challenges them thematically, or forces them to evolve in order to succeed. After all, where are the emotional losses and necessary sacrifices that are needed to be made in order to save the world? What does Eleven have to discover about herself through her confrontation with Vecna? I guess she realizes that she's not a monster? Is that what we're going with?
You think I'm a monster too. What? You are the monster.
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
Even Vecna's greatest achievement is undermined by the writing. We see in the Season 4 finale that the Mother Gate is opened, and it looks like Hawkins is being consumed by the Upside Down. I, like many people, thought this was going to change the world. But nope, it just kind of gets paved over in Season 5. There's just another gate open now, just like there was from Seasons 1 to 3. Even after everything Vecna did in Season 4, it didn't really amount to much. So in essence, he's a neutered villain. Sure, Vecna may look cool and has powerful abilities, but he's made irrelevant by the narrative. Unfortunately though, this isn't his only problem. Chapter 3. Vecna is a dumbass. So not only is this guy unable to be an effective antagonist, but he's also a total idiot. I mean, Vecna has control over interdimensional monsters. He can summon a weird cloud creature, he can enter people's minds at will and murder them. He's a master of telekinesis and seems to be somewhat immune to death. And you're telling me that Vecna's greatest threat is a bunch of uppity teenagers? I mean, how many times are you gonna let these guys pull the wool over your eyes before you do something about them? Even when Vecna finally has the main characters in his grasp, he spares them for no reason. In Season 4, he captures Nancy in the dreamscape, and instead of killing her on the spot, he shows her his evil plan. But why the fuck would you reveal anything to your most dangerous adversaries?
I'm not a comic book villain. Do you seriously think I'd explain my masterstroke to you if there were even the slightest possibility you could affect the outcome?
And yes, Steve explains that Vecna doesn't see them as a threat, but that also doesn't make any sense as they are the ones who have defeated him in every season. Underestimating these people isn't cool, it's idiotic. These kids are the only ones who know anything about Vecna or what he's trying to do. If they were out of the way, then he would have won already. He not only spares Nancy, but he also just toys with Max, Eleven, and Will as well, instead of just snapping their necks when he has the option to do so. He just ends up monologuing for a very long time.
And
Kill her already.
we are different.
She's right there, do it.
Papa did hurt me.
Bullshit!
And this obviously keeps coming back to bite him in the ass. Especially when he leaves Will alive, who just turns around and kills the Demogorgons and saves his friends. Well, great. I bet you're happy about your big entrance. You killed a whole platoon of soldiers but spared the one guy who had the power to stop you. Had you just stabbed Will in the face, the whole show would be over. Oh well.
Aw, damn it!
Or what about this stupid plan to steal children and bring them to the Upside Down? So we see that Vecna's using his telepathy to befriend these random children in order to get them to join him. But then we see that he just sends Demogorgons to steal them anyway, so why does Vecna go through all this trouble to trick them when he could kidnap them anytime he wants? Also, why did Vecna take Holly first and not just kidnap all the children at the same time? Then there would be no chance of anyone stopping him, and none of the main characters would become aware of what his plan was. He could just send one Demogorgon to each house the same night. How hard could it be? The applications of having seemingly countless Demogorgons on hand is quite mind-boggling when you stop to think about it. I mean, these things can cut through the fabric of time and space like they're fucking Doctor Strange. They are also seemingly immune to gunfire and have insane levels of strength and dexterity. Realistically, the whole show could have been over in the first 10 minutes of the season, had Vecna just used his fucking brain. All he had to do was send like 5 Demogorgons to the Wheeler house and have them all killed. They could have taken out Mike, Jonathan, Will, Joyce, Karen, and Ted all in one go. Then do the same thing to the rest of the characters. Really, Eleven is the only major threat, so spend all of your resources taking her out at least. You could send armies of Demogorgons and Demodogs to her house. I mean, sure, she's powerful, but she isn't able to take on more than a couple of these things, right? Or why doesn't Vecna use his mental powers to go attack everyone from a distance? He could pick them off one by one until Eleven is on her own with no one to help her. And if that doesn't work, then you could just kill them with your telekinesis. You know, just do that neck snap head jerk motion to every character. My point is that the opportunities for this guy to kill the main characters are endless, especially considering how powerful he is, and the fact that he has an army of interdimensional beings under his control. And the fact that he wastes all these potential ideas makes Vecna look like a dumbass. He's just a loser who keeps getting beaten by children, and he can't even kill an alcoholic mother. So unless Season 5 completely turns this ship around, Vecna will go down as a wasted antagonist. A character with all the ingredients of a great villain, but with none of the payoff. Chapter 4. The Demogorgons. So now that I have established that the Duffer Brothers have ruined Vecna as the main antagonist of the show, we can now discuss how they have also pretty thoroughly gutted the Demogorgons as a dangerous monster. Now, I have touched on some of these issues already, but something I wanted to drive home is how inconsistent these creatures are. I mean, on one hand, they are extremely powerful beings that can withstand getting shot from multiple automatic assault rifles, but on the other hand, they are seemingly affected by water balloons, getting hit by shovels, getting stabbed by wine bottles, and in Season 4, Hopper could straight up kill one with a sword. It just doesn't seem very consistent. Not only that, but their level of competency is all over the place. Like, the Demogorgons are absolute pros at taking out faceless goons, but when it comes to the main characters, they turn into clumsy assholes. I mean, are you seriously telling me that these soldiers are easier to deal with than Holly? How does she even manage to escape this situation in episode 2? She is an undefended child who has no preconceived notion of what's going on here. Hell, Will seemed like a much more capable character in Season 1, and he got kidnapped in seconds. Yet the Demogorgon here has a really difficult time dragging her through the portal. I guess slippery boots are its kryptonite? How clever. Now, a lot of people think that Will's mental connection to the hive mind throws off the Demogorgons, making them less competent when they're taking on the main characters. Which is true in some situations, like when Joyce faces off against one with an axe. However, it's pretty clear when Will's doing this. He begins to have a seizure, and we can actually see his mental connection to the hive mind. However, he wasn't connected when Karen fought the Demogorgon, or when Holly escaped. It's clear by these examples that the writers make the Demogorgons a threat when they want them to be, and then they make them dumb as hell whenever it's convenient for the main characters to escape. We saw the same problem with the Xenomorphs in Alien Earth. We are supposed to believe that these are super dangerous and deadly monsters. However, the show never commits to the idea. This is a mark of lazy writing, as the creators are never trying to be consistent. It's just whatever's easiest for them. And that kind of attitude towards storytelling is pretty contemptible. Chapter 5. The military are also a bunch of dumbasses. Okay, so the military factions in Stranger Things have been made into a complete joke since Season 3. What was originally a mysterious and threatening force is now just a bunch of mindless clowns that make a bunch of idiotic decisions. We see that the gang can infiltrate heavily secure military bases regularly and without fail. It's gotten so routine at this point that it's not even a question that if they can do it anymore, just how it will happen. In Season 3, we see that they somehow infiltrate a secret Russian bunker, and in Season 4, Joyce and Murray are able to sneak into the most heavily guarded prison in the Soviet Union. So I guess it's no wonder that the entire cast is able to get in and out of a super secure dimensional portal that the US military is guarding. Why would that be a problem, right? So after the Season 4 finale, where Hawkins was turned into a huge gate to the Upside Down, the military came in and put the entire town on lockdown. On a side note, why are these kids sledding down a concrete hill? How could this be fun or even comfortable? It reminds me of the Brotherhood of Steel playing basketball with fucking bricks in the Fallout show. Oh my god, is this what Hollywood writers do for fun?
They're never gonna stop! Endless trash!
Anyway, so instead of evacuating Hawkins so the government can conduct their secret interdimensional experiments in peace, they instead decide to imprison the entire town so that the people can stick around and create problems for them. Supposedly they do this because they think the townsfolk might be contaminated by the ashfall. However, this doesn't make sense because A, the military knows the Upside Down's air is breathable, and B, it's been 18 months since the Season 4 finale. So surely there would be some signs by now that people have been infected by something. I mean, I know that the government wouldn't put people on lockdown without a good reason, right? Right? Then there's the issue of the portal itself. I mean, after an earthquake rocked the town and a giant dimensional portal opened up, wouldn't you think that evacuating the civilians would be the government's top priority? After all, what if it happens again? Or what if an army of strange and evil creatures comes through from the other side? Wouldn't you want everyone to be at a safe distance? I know I wouldn't want to be at ground zero of an interdimensional invasion, so there is no good reason for the townsfolk to be there. It doesn't make any sense for their own safety, and they're simply inconveniencing the military. After all, this would be a super secret project. For example, you wouldn't want a bunch of meddling teenagers wandering around causing you trouble. But hey, then the show wouldn't happen, right? Oh no. Even on a practical defense level, the army never seems to put any effort into patrolling or stopping any spies from watching the base. We see in the first episode that Mike and Lucas are able to get into this tower and observe the entire military operation without anyone spotting them. Why would you leave this kind of vantage point unguarded in the first place? Realistically, there'd be a couple soldiers here at all times so random fucking people wouldn't come here and see what they're doing. Fuck the characters, they would also be worried about spies and journalists trying to get pictures and evidence of what's really going on. This would be huge news after all, and the Russians have obviously pulled this kind of shit before. I cannot stress enough how fucking airtight everything would be around here. Hawkins would make Area 51 look like a walk in the park. The very idea that Hopper has successfully snuck onto a military convoy and gotten in and out of the Upside Down nearly 40 times is laughable. Then there's these huge tunnels that the army is of course somehow unaware of. After season 2, the government would be aware of its existence. After all, Sullivan would have had access to whatever information Owens and his people had written up about it. So either Sullivan knew about the tunnels and did nothing about them, making him an idiot, or he did know about them and simply chose not to deal with them, also making him an idiot.
Fuck.
I mean, why wouldn't Sullivan just fill in the tunnels with cement? After all, what commander would allow massive tunnels to run under their super secure base that contains a gateway to another dimension? Also, why wouldn't the military just set up a base on the exact opposite side of the portal? That way both bases are pretty much physically connected, and you wouldn't need to have these stupid convoys that get infiltrated by Hopper and destroyed by Demogorgons. Then we have this supposedly epic battle at the Mother Gate in episode 4. And I know a lot of people are consumed by the cool tracking shots and the exciting action, but this is some of the dumbest shit to happen in the entire show. So first of all, the Demogorgons attack and the soldiers for some reason just start shooting at the creatures in big circles. Bullets are flying everywhere and it's all very chaotic. It would not be difficult to assume that probably half the soldiers here got killed from friendly fire. Also, nobody seems to realize that bullets don't seem to work on these things. So you would think that they would try to retreat or regroup and try a new tactic. I mean, they know that the Demogorgons don't like heat, so why aren't there more flamethrowers on hand? They have 2 fucking guys here out of seemingly hundreds that have any capability of producing fire. Wouldn't that just be the main weapon at the base? Or how about when Vecna shows up? We see that the army is very prepared to use sonic cannons on 11 at any given moment. They have them strapped to their Humvees and helicopters. Hell, they even have them set up in their laboratories. So why aren't they set up all around the main base as well? I mean, wouldn't they be prepared for 11 to show up there? And sure, they might not know who Vecna is or what his weaknesses are, but you could turn the sirens on at least. It wouldn't hurt to try. But nope, the army can't do any of that because that would mean that the writers would have to maintain consistency with the rules and the standards that they put into place. And that's just too difficult, I guess. So unfortunately, just like every other antagonist in this show, the military has been reduced to goofy cartoons that fail to operate with any logic or forethought. Chapter 6, subscribe to my channel. See what I did there? So hey, if you stuck around this long, then why don't you hit that subscribe button and help the channel grow? I know it's difficult to commit to a long-term relationship like this, but let's put the baggage and trauma to the side, shall we? I won't hurt you like they did. Chapter 7, the tale of Sullivan and the Byers family. Colonel Sullivan is a character that is established in Season 4 as someone who is hell-bent on killing 11. He thinks that she's behind all the killings that Vecna is doing in Hawkins. And without any real evidence, this guy is willing to commit war crimes and break numerous other laws in pursuit of his goal. One of these insanely idiotic crimes is when he sends a kill squad to the Byers' house. They shoot up the place, kill an agent, almost execute a family, and then they capture and torture another agent who is protecting them.
It jumped up a notch. It did, didn't it?
Jonathan, Mike, and Will return to save 11 from Sullivan at the bunker, and they are on the run from him for the rest of the season. So we can assume that Sullivan is pretty aware of who the Byers family is and their involvement with 11. Because, you know, they adopted her. So why is it in Season 5 that the Byers are just freely walking around this occupied military zone that Sullivan is in direct control over? Like they're not even trying to hide. Will is going to school now, and Jonathan has a job at the radio tower. I mean, did Sullivan forget about the Byers family? Would they still not be persons of interest to him? Wouldn't he want to capture them and interrogate them for information? He seems totally fine with torture, mass murder, and breaking national laws, so why wouldn't he use these methods on Will, Jonathan, and Joyce? They would have all the information he needs to know. After all, he is clearly still trying to find Eleven, so wouldn't his first move be to find her family and friends? You know, get some information out of them, and then even use them for bait to draw Eleven out? We even see later on that one of Sullivan's men has to introduce him to Joyce. Like, what the fuck, man? She should be your number one suspect. They should have wanted posters all over town with their faces on it, just like Eleven does. Not only that, but they'd also be after Mike as well. Or how about Argyle? Where's he at? Is the military zapping his balls right now for information? This made me question the Byers family as well. Why aren't they hiding with Hopper and Eleven in the woods? Did they walk away from that shootout and were like, yeah, don't ever need to worry about that happening again? The idea of them staying with Hopper would also solidify this family dynamic that was set up in Season 4. It's clear that Eleven has been adopted by Joyce, and Hopper is her dad, so wouldn't they all want to stay together as a family anyway? Not only that, but they're also putting the Wheeler family in danger because they are essentially protecting fugitives at this point. This just adds to the fact that this entire martial law thing in Hawkins feels fucking weak. There's nothing different about the characters' lives here. They go to school, have jobs, and everyone acts no differently. There isn't even a need to hide from the soldiers here. I mean, the main characters can ride around in this big fucking van with a giant antenna strapped to the top of it, and no one seems to care. This makes Sullivan a really needless and idiotic character. He has the entire town on lockdown, and has all the information and resources necessary to find Eleven, but he simply cannot do it because the writers are too incompetent to apply any logic to their story. This creates massive plot holes that are truly unfixable at this point, and I'm only getting started. Chapter 8. Do nothing instead of something. Now I'm going to say something that may shock some people, because many find Stranger Things to be this exciting, mystery-induced action comedy. But Season 5 is boring, and that's due to a little thing called pacing. Now, stories like Stranger Things rely on forward momentum. Something happens, it creates a problem, characters react, and those reactions create new problems. What's important is that each scene changes the character's situation. This is provided by new information, stakes increasing, or characters making decisions that changes the narrative's direction. Now on the surface, it would seem that these are elements that Stranger Things 5 has. However, a major issue with the pacing of the story is that when the characters are about to face consequences or have to deal with a threat, the show cuts to another group of characters who are dealing with a much slower and intimate emotional problem.
I don't like girls.
This sounds very gay.
Essentially, we as the audience are getting whiplash from the constant back and forth of the tone. We see a bit of action and excitement, then cut back to some drawn-out speech where a character is blaming themselves for their current situation. A good example of this is when Lucas, Robin, and Vicky are hiding from the Demodogs in the hospital. Now this sequence has a lot of natural building tension. Robin is caught by the military and is about to be arrested, only to then run into a much bigger threat of the Demodogs. Lucas then has to escape into the basement while carrying an unconscious Max with the dogs right on his heels. The group then makes it to the laundry room where there's no escape, and just when it looks like everyone's about to die, Karen comes in and pulls a Deus Ex Machina to save them. So we can see how the tension and pacing of the sequence steadily grows until there's a resolution. Now, is this a good scene? Fuck no, but we'll get to that later. But at least the tension would have been consistent had we stuck with these characters and what they were dealing with. But the problem is that the sequence keeps getting undercut with Max and Holly's much slower and emotional conversations, which essentially just amounts to Max having a long-winded speech to Holly about believing in herself and thinking about her loved ones so she can step through her own portal and escape.
That doesn't make sense.
Somehow, Max is now an expert on portals and how they function. It's questionable that either of these characters would stop to ponder this, considering that their lives are on the line, and would likely just grab the first opportunity of escape that presented itself. But hey, it's Stranger Things. These characters are fully aware that they're invincible at this point, so who cares? But back to the pacing. So the tones of these scenes are completely different, yet they are happening simultaneously. While Lucas and Robin are running for their lives, nearly getting killed, and are desperately looking for a way out, these two idiots are just chatting about their feelings with zero sense of urgency. So one of Robin and Lucas's main issues is that they need to turn off the music so the Demodogs don't hear them. But they can't do that until Max leaves her mental prison through the portal that the music is providing. Max, however, doesn't seem to care at all that both her and her friends' lives are at stake here. She is content to go on a leisurely jog towards the portal. And it becomes frustrating for the audience because the entire time we're sitting here yelling at Max to get her ass in gear and head through the portal. Like, what the fuck are you doing here, you toad? Are you mentally deficient? Is there something wrong with you? You've been stuck in this mental prison for nearly 2 years, and this is how you escape?
What the fuck?
You'd think that Max would have learned to pick up the pace here after the first time. This kind of idiotic and slow behavior also takes us out of the scene because the characters themselves don't seem to be invested in the situation they're in. So why should we be? Let's make another comparison to The Matrix, in order to understand how tension and pacing should work in a scene that has identical stakes. So near the end of the film, Neo is on the run from the agents, as they are doing everything they can to kill him before he reaches the phone, or portal, in order to get out of the Matrix. While this is happening, the rest of the crew are dealing with the threat of the machines attacking the ship. Neo needs to escape so Morpheus can activate the EMP, which will kill all the machines and save them in return. This creates a great amount of tension because everyone's lives are relying on Neo escaping in time. But he isn't doing a slight jog. He's sprinting through crowded streets, jumping off buildings, climbing through fire escapes, and all the while he's getting shot at. Everything he is doing is a clear act of desperation. And the tension is coming from two different threats, but it's all aiming at Neo. It would have been better that when Max and Holly reach the portal, we see Vecna appear in the distance behind them. This would have made this long and drawn out emotional exchange be wrapped up in a couple lines, shrinking the time and increasing the intensity of their situation, as now there's another force pushing them out of the dreamscape, just like Neo has with the agents. And then they would have to sprint to the portal. This way they would at least have all the characters in equal amounts of stress and desperation, instead of the tension, excitement, and drama being interrupted by this.
And I can never make it out. But you found a way through Camazotz.
But this problem is riddled throughout both this season and season 4. The Duffer Brothers in general seem to have lost the ability to maintain pacing, and it really impacts our viewing experience. I, and many people, walked away from this episode feeling frustrated rather than entertained, which is never a good thing. Just ask David and Dan how they're getting on after the ending of Game of Thrones. Perhaps this is a bit of a window into the future to what the Duffer Brothers will be doing in a few years. You just never know. Chapter 9. Second Screen Viewing. So many people are now noticing that there's a lot of planning this season. I mean, who doesn't love some improvised presentation followed up with some cheeky banter to masquerade the fact that this is all exposition dumping? However, it has become very frequent in this season specifically. We get at least one big plan breakdown an episode, if not more. But why? Why do we need all of these easy to follow PowerPoint presentations that explain even the most basic of situations? Well, as the name of the chapter suggests, there is a reason for this, and it's a writing strategy that Netflix has implemented for all of their television shows, and it's called second screen viewing. Netflix has made a fundamental creative decision. Instead of challenging audiences or earning their attention, the platform assumes that viewers are barely watching at all. That we will be on our phones, scrolling through social media, hardly focusing on the show as it just plays on in the background as some kind of white noise. Supposedly, in order to counter this, dialogue becomes explicit. Characters repeatedly explain what they are doing, why they are doing it, and how they feel about it. Everything becomes expository so you can listen along in the background and still follow what's happening. And it has become painfully obvious by season 5 that Stranger Things has fully submerged itself in this strategy, which is disingenuous to both the story and the viewers. Of course, many people are fully invested in the show and its characters. Thousands of people analyze Stranger Things, creating theories and watching for the story's hidden meanings. Then you have assholes like me who take the time to criticize it. On top of that, you have the millions of people who watch these people analyze the show. To assume that nobody is paying attention is offensive, as it is stupid. For example, in episode 6, Max and Holly have an argument over what they should do next. Max wants to wait for rescue in the cave, while Holly wants to leave and find their own way out of the dream world. This is just after they were able to escape Vecna via Will entering his mind and breaking his leg. If you were looking at your phone when all of this happened, don't worry, because Max almost gives an exact rundown of the situation.
Unless you know somebody else with psychic powers who's able to remotely infiltrate Vecna's mind, fight him off, communicate through him to tell us to run, then it had to be Elle.
Well, that sounded completely natural. This is totally how people talk, right? Speaking in a manner which would helpfully summarize the situation for a third party that was not present. Now it's obvious that this was for the audience and not the characters, as they were there for this entire thing. She wouldn't need to recap everything perfectly because, again, that's not how people talk. And this kind of shit is carpet bombed through the entire season. Lots of over-explaining every little detail just in case you missed it the first time. And it just makes everything such a slog to watch if you're paying attention, because things are just getting repeated again and again. In short, Netflix is expecting less from its audience, and in turn, it's giving us less to think about and enjoy. This is a cheap ripoff. It's a watered-down narrative that does everything it can to pump out cash without doing any of the legwork. It's all about the dollar bills and nothing else. The longer you keep the show running, the more it bumps up the viewing numbers, and the more money these mustache-twirling swindlers at Netflix get. It's gross and annoying, and I almost feel bad for giving this show any attention at all. Because if you're going to take a decade to finish this show and spend millions of dollars on it, then it better have some fucking effort put into it. But that rarely seems to be the case these days. Chapter 10. Nancy Wheeler, the Human Shotgun. So Nancy has pretty consistently been one of the smartest characters in Stranger Things. She, like Hopper, is a natural investigator and is usually behind the big discoveries in the show. But now, she's just been reduced to being a stubborn dickhead that makes the most idiotic decisions with little to no consequences. We start to see this when she tells Steve to head through the portal to the Upside Down. Both Dustin and Jonathan seem to have no desire in going, but they are essentially forced into this situation by Nancy's decision. But hey, Nancy's desperate to track the Demogorgon and find out where her sister is. Fair enough. But let's acknowledge that this is Nancy directly putting others in danger without considering the consequences. This will become a theme very quickly. While driving in the Upside Down, Steve gets distracted for so long that he somehow misses the giant Game of Thrones sized meat wall and crashes. Kind of hard to miss the lack of horizon here, but I guess Dustin's annoying little comments are just so titillating. So the group is able to communicate with Hopper, who tells them to wait at the church until they can meet up. This plan makes sense as they are all now stuck in the Upside Down and would likely fare better as a team. Nancy and her group are especially useless as they have no provisions or weapons besides the shotgun, while Hopper on the other hand is armed to the teeth and Eleven has her abilities. Nancy, however, doesn't like being told what to do, and she wants to leave and find Holly instead of hiding at the church. Okay, I understand your desire to get your sister back, but let's face it, you have no way of knowing where she is or how to find her. And even if you did, she would likely be guarded by Vecna, someone who is far more powerful. And besides, wandering around aimlessly in the Upside Down with minimal protection is surely a death sentence, right?
Wrong!
I mean, what if the Demogorgons showed up? Or a pack of Demodogs? Or a band of patrolling soldiers? Not much use to Holly if you're dead. But hey, what am I saying, right? Season 4 did plenty to neutralize the Upside Down as a real threat. We see that the characters are constantly walking around with no trouble or inconvenience. In fact, this place seems safer than the normal version of Hawkins most of the time, so I take it back. Do what you want, Nancy. You go, girl. So shortly after Hopper tells them to stay put, Dustin discovers that the giant meat wall completely surrounds Hawkins in a big circle, and also at the center of the circle is Hawkins' lab. So he thinks that they should head there and find out what's really going on. Nancy of course agrees with this idea, and they head out to the lab. Now for some reason, they do nothing to inform Hopper of their decision, despite the possible negative ramifications it may have on him and Eleven. Yep, just disregard them completely. Why not? I mean, if you're gonna disobey Hopper anyway, then at least tell him where you're going. You could have left a note or something. By the time Hopper arrives at the church to find Nancy and the others, they've already screwed things up at the lab, and they find themselves in a situation that Eleven could have been very useful in. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves here. Nancy and the gang make it to Hawkins' laboratory off-screen, seemingly without any problem. Yet another example of how the fucking Upside Down is treated more as a walk in the park than an interdimensional threat, but whatever. So while they're searching the lab, Dustin theorizes that there must be a big energy source around here that created the wall. And if they destroy that energy source, the wall will come down and they can rescue Holly. Not sure how Dustin came up with this, but hey, that's what we're going with. Anyway, Nancy comes up with another bright idea to split up the group and look for clues of this energy source. Because why? Is there a time limit here? Why not stick together so you can search the facility floor by floor until you find something? After all, you're the only one with a weapon. You're leaving both Dustin and Steve pretty defenseless. Ah, fuck it. So after a lot of very on-the-nose melodrama, Nancy and Jonathan make their way to the roof. Along the way, they find corpses of soldiers and weird melting walls. This would be a good time to radio Steve and Dustin and let them know what you had found. This is obviously something perilous, and it's a good clue that they're on the right track, so it would be worth informing everyone else in case it turns out to be super dangerous. I wonder. Instead, Nancy and Jonathan decide to head to the roof where they find a big invisible energy ball. After doing a bit of investigating, they finally radio Dustin. However, because he and Steve broke their radio during their catfight, the signal is interrupted. However, it's pretty clear on Jonathan's end that Dustin warns him not to touch it. And even if it wasn't clear to Jonathan for some reason, it's still obvious that Dustin is stressing caution here. Despite what Nancy might think, he's not screaming to blow it up, and even if that's indeed what Jonathan perceives to be the case, then why isn't he acting with more urgency here? However, it's pretty apparent that he's hesitant about doing this, and for good reason. After all, they have no idea what's going to happen here. This is some magical bullshit they've never seen before. The shot could deflect and possibly kill them, or it could blow up and incinerate them. It could spew out some kind of deadly gas, or maybe it would turn into a black hole and suck them into oblivion. After all, this thing is massive, and it has enough power to create a giant wall around Hawkins. So it's clearly powerful enough to kill them. The point is that they have no fucking clue what this thing is, or what it could do to them. Yet Nancy seems content to just shoot it without asking any questions. Why investigate? It's not like it's part of her character or anything. Nope, she has no concern about what Dustin was trying to warn them about at all. And fucking spineless Jonathan here doesn't have the balls to rip the gun out of her hand and smack some sense into her. Now I know the showrunners would like us to believe that the shotgun is Nancy's whole personality, but this is some of the most retarded decision making I've seen on television, and that's saying a lot considering what's come out recently.
I'm gonna be a dad.
Shut the fuck up, you cunt!
Wait, hold up. Was she really walking around the Upside Down with an unloaded shotgun this whole time? Why the fuck would you do that? This gun is useless without any fucking shells in it.
You're a moron.
So again, why not just wait, right? Is the rush in this moment so great? What is actually forcing Nancy to be such a window-licking buffoon here? Oh right, I remember now.
Do you accept my own proposal?
I accept your proposal.
We are not saying the same thing!
The Duffer Brothers wanted to manufacture a scene where Jonathan and Nancy could be in a perilous situation and they could finally break up. Fantastic! I love it when writers force the plot to happen, however unnatural it may seem. Alright, so we're doing this, aren't we? So after Nancy expels the last of her brain cells, the ball of magical energy explodes. What a surprise! So they both pass out and awaken to find themselves stuck in a room full of melting goop. Despite the fact that the very fabric of reality seems to be decomposing here, the floor of the room doesn't give out, nor do the walls for some reason. We see that the door handle melts, and the ceiling is caving in, so why not everything else? Oh right, just don't think about it. Gonna have to remember that one. So these characters are magically trapped here so they can finally admit that they don't actually like each other? Or that they love each other and don't want to get married? Is that what's happening? Because it's not that obvious. This scene was so unclear as to what's actually transpiring between these two characters that the Duffer Brothers had to announce that Nancy and Jonathan had indeed broken up. Which is always a sign that you're a good writer, and not at all that you have a difficulty translating interaction to the audience properly. I mean, this scene just doesn't make sense from an emotional standpoint. They're laughing and they say that they love each other, and it's weirdly bonding as though they're overcoming their problems together. because they're about to die after all. I mean, we see them hugging and kissing, not exactly breakup energy. I don't see any of Jonathan's clothes thrown on the front lawn, and there isn't any threats to burn the house down. So is this what a healthy breakup looks like?
It's fucking over us. This is no joke. I don't think we should see each other anymore.
On another note, doesn't it feel unnatural that you would break up with your partner just before your death? Would this not be a bonding moment where you would do anything not to be alone? After all, it seems instinctive to cling to the person you're sharing your final moments with.
Well, you know the old expression. Nope.
So as I underlined at the beginning of this chapter, Nancy has made a series of idiotic decisions that has led to this outcome. She decided to go into the Upside Down when Jonathan didn't want to. She chose to leave Hopper behind despite Jonathan's concerns. She made the decision to split up the group, and she elected to shoot the fucking energy ball that was obviously the thing not to do. Again, against what Jonathan suggested. So if you're gonna have it out, if you're gonna have these characters confess their problems with one another, then why the fuck doesn't Jonathan condemn Nancy for the series of idiotic choices that has seemingly doomed not only them, but Steve, Dustin, Hopper, and Eleven as well? And by extension, Holly, the very person Nancy was trying to save. The entire fabric of reality is falling apart here, and there is not one mention of disappointment from anyone, in fact. Had she just waited for Hopper and Eleven, or waited for Dustin, everything would have been fine. But nope, Nancy's gotta go it alone.
Retard. You can't even say it.
It turns out everything's fine anyway. Nobody dies, and in fact, it's a growing experience for everyone. Steve and Dustin make up, and Hopper and Eleven find a convenient way to escape. And yeah, the whole world falling apart just kinda peters out on its own, so there's no real trouble in the end. Now, why does the world stop melting? Oh, right, just don't think about it, okay. It just does because the characters are broken up now, and that was the entire reason for the scene in the first place. That's just dandy, isn't it? Should I ask any questions about the white goop itself? Is it toxic? Does it melt everything? And if so, why isn't it melting Jonathan and Nancy? After all, it seemed to melt these soldiers they found in the hallway. What happens if this stuff gets in your mouth, or in your pores or something? Can it seep in? Is it harmful? Oh right, I forgot. Just don't think about it. So Nancy is just able to fail upwards, with no backlash from the characters or the world they inhabit. She can literally shoot a ball of energy that holds the fabric of reality together, and she doesn't even come out with a scratch. So yet again, the Duffer Brothers make it painfully obvious that they are unable to create consequences for their characters. Not only can nobody die, but they can't even get a slap on the wrist. Even later on when Hopper and Nancy reunite, there is no comment about this entire ordeal. Jim, this woman nearly got you and your daughter killed. You should be furious with her. And for the group at large, Nancy's opinions on anything should be moot at this point. She should be kicked out of the group for being such a liability. You can't go off trying to save the world with this moron stepping on your toes every 5 seconds. But hey, it's Stranger Things. I'm surprised she didn't get a fucking medal for doing this. I have a feeling that the Duffer Brothers are really big into participation awards. And I know I keep beating this drum, but would it not have been better had they finally killed Jonathan here? You got a situation where it certainly looks like someone's gonna die. And these two characters are broken up, which essentially takes away Jonathan's only remaining purpose in the story. So give him a good send-off. Have him put Nancy on his shoulders and push her onto the roof so she can get to safety and he can slowly drown in the white paint. This way, Jonathan dies heroically, and Nancy actually has to face some repercussions. Add in a proposal scene where Jonathan gives her a ring, tells her to take care of herself and that he loves her despite their difficulties, or maybe he consents to Nancy being with Steve. Who knows? This way, there would actually be some emotional payoff here, other than this vague breakup that nobody seemed to understand. Again, the magic word being
consequences.
It would remind the audience that these characters aren't invulnerable, and that the Upside Down is dangerous. Nancy could even have a further revelation that she can't be careless. That she needs to watch out for the people around her, and consider their opinions before going into a situation half-cocked. But why do that when you can just have Nancy never own up to anything, or be chastised for her incompetency? And so, dear viewer, what are we left with here? A story that has no consistent characters, no meaningful conflict or impactful actions, and a complete absence of clear writing. So let's give the Duffer Brothers a round of applause. Thank you for the lesson in how to destroy your own legacy. Chapter 11. Eleven's Boyfriend. So one of the biggest issues of having an overbloated cast is that you end up with a bunch of characters that have no practical function in the plot. In order for a character to have value in a story, they must be involved by making decisions that push the narrative forward. If a character fails to do this, then they lack purpose and lose any reason for being there. This is especially true for main characters, as they are the ones that the audience focuses on the most in order to interpret what's happening and how they should be affected by it. Either we are learning as they do, feeling what they feel, or watching them grow and change in order to overcome the antagonist. Which brings us to Mike, who does nothing for the story, himself, or anyone else around him. The most poignant thing he does in the entire season is host a sentimental D&D game, yet this is to cap off the story itself, not to drive it forward. It is difficult to comprehend how Mike went from being a central character in Season 1 to essentially being a forgettable afterthought in Season 5.
Who are you?
Mike makes no major decisions throughout the season. The only time he gets to be on screen is to have some useless job that could have been done by anyone, such as being the group's lookout or planning the crawl in Episode 1. At any other point, he's simply reacting to what other, more important characters are doing. Hell, in Season 4, he was relegated to the most useless plotline in the entire show. His greatest contribution to the story was cheerleading Eleven as she did everything on her own. So this has been going on for a while, but I can hear you asking, surely he does something, right? Mike can't seriously have zero impact on the plot. Well, I suppose if you count stupidity and complete incompetence, then yes, Mike has this in spades. At the beginning of Season 5, it's established that Holly has a new imaginary friend, someone she's been talking to comfort her in her time of need. Her parents are fighting, her mom's an alcoholic, Ted is an absent father, and the whole town is in a military lockdown. Meanwhile, Mike and Nancy are supposedly too busy to pay any attention to her. This imaginary friend, however, quickly becomes a problem for Holly as her teacher notices her having a hallucinated conversation with him. So this imaginary friend warns Holly that there's monsters in Hawkins and that he will protect her. Very creepy. Because of this, Holly is kept from leaving school and Karen is called in to have a chat with the principal. Holly then tells Mike what's happening and he's completely unfazed by it. And meanwhile, Mike is quite literally chasing a telepathic villain that makes his victims hallucinate. So he doesn't even try to inquire when his sister starts to imagine a strange man who's threatening her with warnings of monsters in Hawkins? No? He can't piece any of this together? Mike is completely at a loss here, right? The idea that this is Vecna never crosses his mind? Would he not be overly concerned, or even paranoid, of what Vecna could do? I know Mike wasn't there for the murders in Season 4, but he would know exactly what Vecna was capable of. Realistically, the entire group would constantly be looking for signs of any dreamwalking symptoms that Max had experienced. And as I pointed out already, Vecna could drop in one by one and take out everyone in the party if he wanted to. The only one who could stop him is Eleven, but she's not always around. There would be a huge fear of this telepathic threat on all sides. So Holly's story should terrify Mike. He should be panicked and concerned about what this all means. But instead, Mike lies to Holly rather than warning her about the very real danger in Hawkins. Which, all things considering, is a very morally important thing to do since Vecna is such a dangerous threat. Wouldn't he want her somewhat prepared for the possible dangers ahead? At the very least, he could ask some basic questions, like who is this man? What does he want? What are these creatures that he's talking about? What does he look like? What's his name? I mean, it's pretty laughable that all of this information is actually available to Mike, and all he had to do was ask.
He says that there are monsters in Hawkins.
I'm not worried about it! I'm not worried about any of this! This world's fucking so fucked up. I'm done!
The only thing stopping him from finding out that this was Vecna is his own stupidity. This information isn't concealed at all. Even Karen knows about it, for fuck's sake. And speaking of Karen, how isn't this a huge conversation around the house by now? Wouldn't Karen have told Mike and Nancy about what's going on with Holly? Even the teachers are more concerned about Holly's well-being than Mike is. And of course, Mike's complete retardation here leads to Holly being kidnapped, which essentially kicks off the events for Season 5. And it's all down to a complete failure of his character. Unlike the usual protagonist that pushes the plot forward through action, it's Mike's complete lack of decision making here that causes all the bad things to happen in this show. He's stupid and useless, which is a shame because he was once a very compelling character that played a major role in the show. Originally, Mike was the leader of the party. He led the search for Will when he went missing, and he decided to help Eleven when no one else could. But now all he does is tag along on adventures without actually doing anything. And it is here that I ask this question yet again. Why not just kill Mike? If a character has no purpose or impact on the story, then there's no need for him to be here. And if you don't want to kill him, fine, but at least write him out of the plot entirely. Give him some sort of exit so he doesn't waste our time with these pointless interactions. In reality, this is a complete disservice to the character of Mike Wheeler. But he's not alone in this complete fuck-up, is he? Half the cast has nothing to do in this show, and it ends up being this awkward group that fumbles around in the background while one person does something of value. Like, look at this dream team assembled here that watch Eleven pick up this metal plate. Why? All of these people could die and it would have zero impact on the plot. However, even the characters that do get a lot of attention still fall flat on their faces. Chapter 12. Being gay in a gay world.
Well, I guess the biggest thing that nobody knows about me is I'm a deeply closeted gay man.
What? So let's talk about something that has no controversy around it whatsoever. Homosexuality. Or more specifically, how the Duffer Brothers handle Will being gay. Now it may surprise some of you to know, but I don't really care about a character's sexuality as long as it has a purpose in the story. Just like any aspect of any character's personality. The main problem here is that the show builds towards some major consequences for Will, yet doesn't follow through when it's finally revealed. The writers put a lot of emphasis on how terrified Will is to come out of the closet, with most of the tension relying on the fact that this is the 1980s. The writers assume that the audience will understand that this was supposed to be a less tolerant time. However, that's not how storytelling works. As a creator, you need to actually show the audience the social issues of the time so we have a clear understanding of what's at stake here. Outside of Season 1, however, there is zero homophobia to be found. And even when there is some anti-gay rhetoric being said, it's from the worst characters in the show.
Will's in fairyland now, right? Flying around with all the other little fairies, all happy and gay.
So it's only the scum of the earth that look down on homosexuals. And even then, it's not directly said to Will's face. In fact, Will and Robin never face any personal blowback for being gay. Not from their friends, family, or any bullies. This takes away from the stigma the show wants us to believe, as we as the audience are never actually witness to it. I mean, it's the 1980s in a small country town. Why not have some homophobic dialogue woven in? This way, there would actually be some tension around the subject, creating some larger fears for Will when he comes out. Maybe even someone like Lucas actually doesn't like gay people and speaks badly about them. Then there's a direct conflict between Will and Lucas over this issue. As it is, we just have two characters who are afraid of revealing their sexuality for no obvious reason. And so we get this long confessional from Will about how he is feeling because apparently we haven't had enough of those already.
I don't like girls. This crush on someone, even though I know they're not like me. It felt so real. It felt so real.
Oh! Gay, so gay.
And yeah, everyone's just fine with it. They have a group hug and Will is accepted by his friends without hesitation. There is absolutely zero backlash from this confession. There isn't an eyebrow raised, not a finger wagged, nobody even shakes their head. So what the fuck was all the drama about? Why spend so much fucking time building up this moment if the result is nobody gives a shit? This whole scene evaporated any consequences that the story had attempted to build. Quite literally nothing changes because of this scene, as there's nothing for these characters to overcome. Because as we already established, nobody is presented to be anything but open-minded and accepting throughout the show.
Boobies!
Don't say boobies!
Not a big deal, okay? I like boobies. You like boobies.
So Will maintains his relationships, and they continue on as they had before. From a writing perspective, no character should get what they want without paying a price for it. Without sacrifices, stories feel weightless. Basic plot structure follows on this line. Desire creates tension, tension demands sacrifice, and sacrifice reveals character. But Will, like so many other characters in this show, never loses anything in order to achieve what they want. They just get it. And it just makes it feel like another situation where the writers wanted their cake and to eat it too. They wanted all the tension and drama of Will coming out, but they couldn't have any negative consequences of it happening, because that would mean that one of their precious characters would have to be at least somewhat homophobic. And we can't have that, or they aren't lovable and perfect characters anymore. Aw shucks.
Alright, I'm out. Yeah, me too.
This coming out party should have been reduced to a few select characters. Having everyone here, including Murray, Erica, Robin's girlfriend, Mr. Clark, and fucking Callie, makes no sense. None of these people really know Will or spend much time with him on screen. So why are they here? What is the value of this revelation to them? This makes this whole thing feel much more self-indulgent and weird. For example, it was far more impactful when Robin came out to Steve in Season 3, and that was because it was an intimate scene between two characters, not a big committee. We didn't know that Robin was gay or how Steve would react to it, but when he accepted her, it felt like a rare situation and it solidified their growing friendship. But with Will, we get the Duffer Brothers patting themselves on the back for dedicating 12 hours and apparently endless rewrites to this scene. I mean, this whole confession is actually longer than the final battle with the Mind Flayer, something the entire show had been building to. And no, this whole scene with Will does not hold up from a narrative standpoint either. The idea that Will needs to tell everyone that he's gay so Vecna doesn't use it against him doesn't make much sense considering the fact that Vecna can make up new fears. We see this when he intimidates Derek by threatening his family, so Vecna could threaten Mike, Joyce, and Jonathan's lives here. He could show Will images of them dead, just like he did with Derek. And these are fears much greater than coming out of the closet to your friends. The show makes this even worse as Vecna doesn't even make an effort to invade Will's mind at any point during the finale. So there is no practical reason for this confession either. But that's not the reason they did this, right? It wasn't for the story or for the characters, it was for themselves. They wanted to brag about all the work they put into this gay plotline and have all the right people pat them on the back for it. However, on a metatextual level, coming out just doesn't have that big of an impact anymore. General audiences are pretty used to gay characters at this point. We got gay movies, gay shows, gay romances, gay background characters, gay comedies, and so on.
Every fucking TV show now, they rub your nose in it.
So Will's coming out scene doesn't really serve as a big flagship for progress because we've seen this 1,000 times before, and it makes it more irritating than revolutionary. After all, this is the final season of a show that's been running for the better part of a decade. And in that time, I don't think the majority of fans were wanting so much focus on the will they, won't they between Mike and Will. Not to mention the fact that Will stops everyone from working on saving the world just so he can take a moment to come out of the closet. Remember, the fate of the world is in your hands here, and this is how you're choosing to spend your final moments with everyone? Just like Max before him, Will demonstrates a sincere lack of urgency towards the main objective, and it just undermines the overall stakes that the show is trying to establish. How are we meant to feel that the world is ending here when everyone is getting in feeling circles and handing out emotional confessions like they're cotton candy? So in one scene, you have a self-serving and meaningless confession that takes up way more time than it deserves to. That also simultaneously ruins any anticipation of the finale and undermines the stakes of what could happen to the world. We're simply at the end of this cultural zeitgeist of cheap storytelling. And I think general audiences are past the point of giving standing ovations every time a gay character appears on screen. Chapter 13, The Big Twist. So with Will's dreaded confession out of the way, we can finally discuss Vecna's big reveal just before the final battle. So after the children escape, Will manages to confront Vecna in the Dreamscape, where he tries to talk him into joining the light side of the Force. Despite Will's efforts, Vecna reveals that he was never under the Mind Flayer's control and that he was actually evil the whole time? Which, yeah, seemed pretty apparent with the whole murdering teenagers and kidnapping children thing. I mean, what was this whole setup for anyway? In Season 5, the show repeatedly hints that Vecna is being used by the Mind Flayer against his will. There's a significant amount of screen time devoted to framing him as a tragic figure, complete with a long, drawn-out sequence where he has to confront his past. This scene frames this moment as a possible turning point for his character, giving us the feeling that Will's intervention might actually turn him to the good side. Except it doesn't. He just commits even harder to destroying the world. There's no reversal, no complication, no new information. Just another subvert your expectations surprise that goes nowhere. The result being that this supposed character arc is just an elaborate fake out, and the story ends up revealing something that the audience already understood since season 4. The villain was evil the whole time. The difference now being that this show spent an entire season pretending that this wasn't the case.
Each life, a faded, lesser copy of the one before.
Everyone is just waiting for it all to be over.
Are we the baddies?
Originally, Henry was a psychopathic supervillain that stumbled across the Mind Flayer and made some kind of alliance with it in order to destroy humanity. But they retconned that, so now he's just some kid that stumbled across a guy in an abandoned mine shaft that for some reason had a rock that contained the essence of the Mind Flayer? Is that what that is? So why was Henry alone here? And why was he in this mine shaft? And who is this guy? And how did he get this rock? And if this was Henry's big moment where he joined the hive mind, then why is he scared of it? If he's so committed to the Mind Flayer, then this would be a good thing, right? And not some terrifying turn to the dark side moment. Did I need to watch the fucking play to understand this? With this new backstory, we are forced to ask questions that have no good answers. So why didn't Henry start killing people earlier to open up the Mother Gate if that was his big goal in season 4? He had contact with the Mind Flayer, he knew what it wanted, so why not open up the portal to its dimension before anyone else knew about it? The Mind Flayer also tells Henry to come and find it. However, he never actually does this. 11 just so happens to send Henry through a portal to its dimension. But that just makes me wonder why Henry didn't go out and find the Mind Flayer earlier if that's what it wanted him to do. And how was he supposed to do this on his own anyway? Could Henry open up portals like 11 did? We never see him use this power, and we could presume that he would have used it sooner had he been able to. But we are never given this information, so it's safe to say that the Duffer Brothers never considered it. So with this retcon, we know that the Mind Flayer infected Henry and gave him a task he wasn't able to perform. And it's only by sheer fucking luck that he managed to meet the one person that could unite them. I mean, had Henry not been captured by Brenner, and had Brenner not used his blood to create new numbers, then 11 wouldn't have been around to accidentally send Henry to Dimension X. It is also super lucky that 11 didn't just snap Henry's neck here. And how did Henry go to high school when he was being used as Brenner's lab rat? Did Brenner just let his most valuable and secret human experiment go out into the world unsupervised? And I'm sure there will be people trying to answer these questions in the comments section, but the plain fact is that we don't know the answers because the Duffer Brothers don't either. They retconned Vecna's backstory, which reveals that they were unsure about his character since his inception. And I don't fucking care if it happened in a goddamn stage play. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard of. Marvel went overboard when they made it necessary to watch like 80 different shows in order to understand their newest films. But now Netflix is trying to outdo them by having their plot put into a stage play. If it didn't happen on screen, then fuck off. Now usually, when you're nearing the end of a story, writers will take the time to answer some major questions that have been left unanswered. But on Stranger Things, the writers thought it would be better to answer questions nobody asked, which only created 1,000 more questions that they never tried to answer. My point being, none of this was thought through. Nothing had any forethought. It's just random idea after random idea. So all we can do is try to interpret this slop, instead of actually having anything tangible to cling on to. Chapter 14, a Marvel level finale. Alright, so the party has this stupid plan of taking out the Mind Flayer with 2 guns, a flamethrower, and some makeshift spears. But of course, it goes off without a hitch because the writers are fucking hacks who have no idea what they're doing. I mean, nobody gets injured here, not a sprained ankle or even a bloody nose. Which technically makes the bullies more effective at dealing damage than the actual big bad of the show. This makes the entire world-ending threat feel pretty meaningless. After all, what was the Mind Flayer's plan if it came up against the US government? I mean, if a handful of teenagers that are hardly prepared for this kind of situation can take you out in a couple minutes, then what the fuck were you gonna do against a jet fighter, or a tank, or an atom bomb? And where were all the creatures that are supposed to be part of the hive mind? We don't see any tentacles, demogorgons, those bat things, or demodogs. I mean, this is the heart of the hive mind. So wouldn't all these creatures instantly know when it's in danger and try to come to the rescue? Demogorgons can make their own portals after all. Oh, apparently the Duffer Brothers were worried about Demogorgon fatigue? Where have I heard this before?
While Danny kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces.
Could they not fit this into their budget? $500 million not enough for you guys? Maybe if you cut back on all those stupid rewrites for Will's coming out party, you would have had more money for some CGI. But in the end, it just doesn't make any sense, and it's lazy. Too bad none of the writers thought to add them.
There have to be some monsters in the Abyss.
I agree.
There has to be Demogorgon, bat, dog, like something.
Bullshit!
And again, someone should have really died here. If you're trying to save the world from some kind of existential threat, it should cost you something. But as we have already established, the creators really hate that concept and will do anything to avoid it. So the Mind Flayer gets cooked in like 5 seconds, and Vecna gets impaled and then gets his head cut off because Joyce needed to do something. And yeah, that's it. The good guys get a flawless victory over the villains. This entire battle highlights the major problems with this show as a whole. You have a rushed fight sequence that lacks any logic or common sense. Such as, how did all these characters climb up this cliffside in like 5 seconds? And why was the Mind Flayer hurt by machine gun fire? We see that Vecna and the Demogorgons are bulletproof, so why is this massive monster affected by an M16? No, not gonna get any answers, are we? You then have zero consequences for the main characters because the writers don't like killing people, and the villains are therefore neutered by the plot. The heroes then save all the children from the Duffer Brother Island, and to cap it all off, you have a sappy emotional scene where everyone's crying for no reason because we haven't had one of those in a couple minutes. So you have a lazy, weightless, and emotionally fraudulent story that exacts zero anticipation from the audience, which in the end just makes everything feel like a bad Marvel movie, or maybe even Avatar. Just a spectacle without any humanity behind it. Chapter 15, Pure Plot Armor. Since we're on the topic of consequence-free storytelling, I would feel remiss if we didn't go through and point out every instance of plot armor in this season, just to make sure I've really driven this point home. Will jumps off a tree, hits multiple branches on the way down, and doesn't break his neck or die from internal bleeding. Dustin is captured and gang beaten by bullies, but isn't murdered, despite them claiming that's what they'll do. Hopper isn't killed by a Demogorgon, despite it killing every soldier nearby. Hopper doesn't die from being shot, nor does the bullet hit the bomb strapped to his chest. Holly isn't severely injured by being thrown into a bookshelf. Both Karen and Ted survive being mauled by a Demogorgon. Hopper somehow is not injured by grenades that he throws like a child for some reason. The evil soldier survives 11 breaking through this locked room in his mind, even though this seems like it's going to have a huge impact on him, but it just turns out to make him angry, I guess. Lucas isn't mauled to death here. Nancy, Steve, Jonathan, and Dustin crash at high speed into a meat wall and survive without injury. Hopper is captured by Linda Hamilton, and she doesn't kill him despite having the opportunity to do so. Hopper in return doesn't kill Linda Hamilton despite murdering countless soldiers before this. It is also apparent that she is the biggest threat to 11, and she is leading a military operation to capture her. Hopper doesn't blow himself up. Every main character at the Mother Gate survives despite there being multiple Demogorgons attacking at once. Vecna doesn't kill Joyce. Vecna doesn't kill Will despite having every reason to do so. Despite getting slashed by a Demogorgon, Lucas never brings up this injury again, and it seems to have no impact on him going forward. Vecna doesn't kill Max immediately despite having every opportunity to do so before Will attacks him. Nancy and Jonathan survive this exotic matter explosion despite being right in front of it when it explodes. 11, Hopper, and Callie are somehow not sucked up through the tear in the universe even though there's trees, boulders, and buildings flying past them. Vecna does not kill Will even though he's a major threat now. Jonathan and Nancy survive this stupid fucking scene. Vicky and Robin survive this Demodog attack. The Demodogs run past them again despite Vecna having a personal reason for wanting Robin dead after the events of Season 4. Lucas is somehow able to overpower Demodog with his foot while he's injured and is carrying Max. Robin, Vicky, and Lucas are somehow not immediately noticed by Demodogs even though they're playing music really loud, and are barely hiding behind this dryer. Deus Ex Karen saves the day. Holly gets yanked out of the sky by Vecna despite being incredibly far away just before her death. Everyone doesn't die from absolute cringe here. Everyone in the truck doesn't immediately die from gunfire even though trucks are not bulletproof. More specifically, Murray somehow survives getting shot at by 3 soldiers who are only a few feet away. Nancy is able to gun down these soldiers without injury. Steve is caught by Jonathan, even though he clearly wouldn't have made it to him in time. Vecna doesn't kill Eleven despite having control over her. Callie conveniently talks for too long, giving Vecna time to escape. Vecna is overpowered by fucking delightful Derek. Hopper isn't executed here despite the soldiers having every reason to do so. Plot armor, 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 plot armor. And of course, every character isn't arrested or shot by the military because fuck it. Chapter 16, Eleven's Epilogue. Alright, so I guess we have to talk about this plank of wood and the end of her story. So after defeating this pathetic excuse for a villain, the heroes complete their plan of blowing up the entirety of the Upside Down. Wow, how convenient is it that there's some random energy source that holds the entire realm together? What's even more convenient is that all it takes is some C4 to blow it up. Too bad the main characters didn't discover this in season 1, or the whole show would be over. But anyway, they head back across the gate and everyone's happy. But oh no, the army's waiting for them on the other side. Who would have thought? Did you seriously think you could drive in here, guns blazing, murder a bunch of soldiers, and then come back and not find the military waiting for you here? What did you think they were gonna do? Did you forget about them?
While Danny kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces.
Why would our heroes not take a different route to leave the Upside Down? After all, they used multiple different portals this season, so why not do it again? Just get 11 to move one of these metal plates and you'd be fine. There is no reason to go back through the same gate you know is heavily guarded. But they do it anyway because everyone's brains got thrown out with half the script. And besides, we need this dramatic fake out with 11 to happen. Okay, so 11's plan here is that she'll trick the military into thinking that she's dead, so she can go off and live the rest of her life in peace in Iceland? And I know this all works out perfectly here, but would it though? After all, even though 11 escapes here, there's no reason to think that everyone else will just be fine. Both Nancy and Hopper have killed multiple soldiers this season, and everyone else has also broken several laws. Including kidnapping, by the way. So realistically, everyone's just going to jail for the rest of their lives. Linda Hamilton here is a fucking general, and Hopper straight up pistol whipped her. He would be so fucked here. They're all really lucky that they didn't just get executed on the spot. But they don't because the show doesn't make any sense. And 11 is able to successfully trick everyone here with the help of Callie. Lucky she was able to do this with a grievous gunshot wound as well as being miles away. So 11 has a goodbye with Mike, and then she fucks off. Whatever happened to those pregnant women the government was experimenting on? Who cares? Now you would think that out of all the people 11 would say goodbye to here, it would be Hopper, right? I mean, if you're gonna fake your death, then maybe it would have been nice to let your adopted father know what your plan was. After all, Hopper has made it pretty clear how much he depends on 11 for his happiness. He has already lost a daughter, and it broke him. 11 was the only one that was able to bring him back from being a depressed man on the brink of collapse. There is absolutely no telling what the death of a second daughter would do to him. That revolver might start looking a little friendly. The show tries to frame this as 11's decision, and that Hopper needed to learn how to let her go and be a hero in order for them both to grow. Which sure is a pretty cliche parental dilemma to have in a story, one that would actually work if letting 11 go meant her saving the world and not dying. But all Hopper does here is allow 11 to dupe him into a bad prank where she pretends to sacrifice herself. Hopper doesn't learn anything from this other than he was wrong to trust her.
Fuck.
If anything, this would make him regress even further because his instincts to protect her were right. It just seems rather callous, perhaps even immoral, not to let him know that she's still alive. But nope, I guess Hopper just comes to terms with everything, and somehow miraculously becomes the sheriff of Hawkins again, despite being legally dead for years and being wanted by the government. Are we seeing a theme here? Something to do with sense and a complete lack of it? So yeah, he has a nice chat with Mike, and he proposes to Joyce, and everything's just great. Aw, wow. The father who did everything to protect his daughter failed, and we have zero payoff for this relationship? How nice. Now, would it not have been better had Hopper been the one to reveal 11's survival here? Hopper could tell Mike that he was in on the plan to fake 11's death so she could hide from the military. And in fact, he even knows where she is, but was reluctant to tell Mike for her own safety. But now, Hopper's ready to let them be together. And the whole show ends with Mike leaving Hawkins to go find Eleven. And that's just an idea, but one that I think pays off these relationships a bit more and gives us a much more fulfilling reveal. But at this point, any changes to the plot would be an improvement. Because if there's one thing the Stranger Things documentary proves, it's that these guys had no idea what they were doing.
I don't know what I'm doing! I'm so fucked here!
Chapter 17, The Rise of Wheeler. So we all remember this garbage fire, right? The Rise of Skywalker, the competitor for worst Star Wars film ever, if not the crown jewel of total failure. This film was the culmination of many writing problems, but one of the most treasured flaws was this scene. The secret knife that is also a map for the ruins of the Death Star, and more specifically the MacGuffin that's inside of it. Many people criticize this scene for the lack of common sense and complete reliance on coincidence and luck. Rey just so happens to fall into a pit that holds the exact thing that she needs in order to find the MacGuffin. She then just so happens to stand in the exact spot she needs to in order for the dagger to point to the location she needs to go to.
Ooh, how convenient.
So if we consider this to be bad, then what should we say about Holly's plotline in Season 5? After she is kidnapped, Vecna traps Holly in the dreamscape alongside Max, and for most of the season, the two are trying to escape. Eventually, Holly decides to venture forth into the desert and look for a way out, taking with her a spyglass that she happened to find in Vecna's house. While out wandering around, Holly realizes that the cap of the spyglass matches the mouth of the cave that they were in. And after a short while of lining it up, she finds a way out. Talk about sheer fucking luck. Had Holly simply not found the spyglass and hadn't looked at the cave from this specific angle, then she would never have found the mine shaft or the way out. So that means that Max doesn't escape and the children die along with the entire world. Everything relies on coincidence here in order to work. Holly just stumbles through the plot, only getting ahead because the writers need her to, not because of her own skills or qualities. Do we see the parallels in the writing quality here? This makes Stranger Things equal to The Rise of Skywalker. And at this point, I'm not sure what franchise should be more insulted by this comparison. This also begs the question, why does the spyglass exist at all? If Vecna controls this realm, then why would he keep a key to escaping in a random fucking chest in his house? At the very least, he could have locked it away, making it more difficult for Holly to take with her. Vecna's entire desire is to keep these children contained, yet he gives them the means and freedom to wander around in search of escape. And why does he put his house within walking distance of this cave in the first place? Which is the only place he can't go. Surely he could rearrange his own made-up reality, right? Just put all the difficult subconscious stuff beyond the desert itself. This way, there is nowhere for the children to hide, and Max would never be able to interfere with his plans.
Wait, you think I didn't think of that? Of course I thought of that.
None of this makes sense, and it's a damn shame that we had to spend so much time with this plotline, instead of focusing on more important characters who desperately needed more screen time. It would have been so much better had it been someone like Mike who had been taken to Camazotz instead. It would have given his character a lot more meaning in the story, and it would have made rescuing him a much bigger personal goal for most of the characters. Will, Dustin, Lucas, Eleven, Jonathan, Hopper, and Nancy would have all been desperate to get him back, as they have a greater connection to Mike than they do to Holly, a child whom most of the characters have never even spent any time with. It's pretty laughable to realize with a cast this bloated and useless, that they decided to add yet another character instead of implementing one of the many who had nothing to do this season. Chapter 18, a series of questions with no answers. Alright, so Stranger Things has been thoroughly beaten into the dirt at this point, but let's discuss what was once the most mysterious aspect of the story, the Upside Down. Now this alternate reality has gradually been stripped away, becoming less and less interesting, to the point in Season 5 where it's been gutted and used for spare parts. Now, to understand this disaster, let's start with the most basic question. How did nobody notice this massive fucking meat wall before? This thing is gigantic! It's the height of a goddamn skyscraper, so how did it take this long for anyone to see it? It would take up the entire horizon! Not only have the characters been bouncing around here for a few seasons, but apparently Hopper has completed nearly 40 crawls at this point. They talk about grid searching in Hawkins, and that they're running out of places to find Vecna. So how did they not come across this before?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Or maybe you could say that none of this was ever planned out to begin with. And so this is a totally new and random fucking idea that was inserted just for this season. How crazy would that be? The fact that they turned the Upside Down into this retarded wormhole is just baffling to me. What a way to utterly destroy all intrigue for this place. I have discussed this on my channel before, but the Upside Down worked far better as a mystery left unsolved. Sure, it's fine giving hints and clues about this dimension, but revealing too much takes away from the mysticism. Some breadcrumbs of information and a little exposition can go a long way in piquing the interest of the viewer. Nothing can compare to the imagination of the audience, so why try to? Season 1 did a really good job of keeping up the mystery. We were never explicitly told what the Upside Down was or what the government was trying to do with it. All we knew was that 11 somehow disturbed this alternate dimension when she was between worlds. And that was enough to keep fans guessing and debating years later. The Shining is a good example of how well mystery can work for a story. The unanswered questions about the Overlook Hotel and many of the theories exploring these questions have kept the film alive for decades. Is Jack a ghost? Is he in hell? Is this all real, or is the family experiencing cabin fever? Why does the hotel layout not make any sense? Was the film all about the mistreatment of Native Americans? Is the whole story actually Jack's novel? You get the point. People are naturally curious, and it's clear that Stranger Things has given up on allowing the audience to wonder. And don't get me wrong, answering questions is very important. However, if you're going to try and answer every question, then you better not leave anything out. But Stranger Things manages to both rip away any mystery about the Upside Down, while simultaneously leaving massive plot holes in the story that make it look less structurally sound than Berlin in 1945. To fully understand this, we need some context. So according to the retcon plotline, after Henry Creel was banished to the Abyss by 11, he was reunited with the Mind Flayer, an ancient and unknowable being that wants to consume everything. There the two were just hanging out, I guess. Apparently they wanted to destroy humanity together, but they had no idea on how to do that, as it seems neither had the ability to create a bridge between the Abyss and Earth. So what was their plan then? Did they know 11 was going to make contact with them? Were they planning on making this wormhole at some point? The Upside Down was created by 11 when she touched the Demogorgon in Season 1. So it's really fucking lucky for these two that 11 happened to do all the legwork for them. So to be clear, it is now canon that the Mind Flayer was completely relying on 11 to both send Henry Creel to the Abyss as well as create the wormhole, while the Mind Flayer itself just sat around and hoped it would all work out because it had no way of influencing these events.
So we're just gonna wing it?
Piper, there's a big difference between winging it and seeing what happens. Now let's see what happens.
And yes, I would like you to ponder how this physical interaction somehow spawned an entire dimensional bridge. There is literally no explanation as to how this works, so fuck it.
He wants to move the Abyss. Crash it into Hawkins.
No, not crash. Merge. So when the Abyss and Hawkins collide,
they become one.
He's remaking the world.
So what does it mean to merge worlds exactly? Is the Mind Flayer's plan to kill all of humanity? Is it to enslave us? Why is it obsessed with destroying Earth when it has no connection to our universe? Like this thing was just floating around the Abyss and somehow became aware of humanity, and from there it was like, yep, just gonna kill Earth even though I have no way to get there and it's not even in the same fucking dimension as I am. And with the knowledge that it wanted to merge worlds, then why the fuck did the Mind Flayer and Vecna waste so much time kidnapping Will, creating the tunnels, do the body snatching meat monster thing, and creating the Mother Gate? But if all Vecna needed was a handful of kids in order to collide these dimensions together, then why not do that earlier? Shouldn't they have taken a bunch of kids in Season 1 and not just Will? And how does possessing the minds of children help with this merging of planets anyway? This ritual has no explanation to it at all. Did anyone think about this story before spending millions of dollars on it? Then there's all this other stuff that completely contradicts itself. Why did the writers establish that the creatures in the Upside Down specifically like the cold, but then have their home planet be a fucking desert wasteland? This is just bad world building. How did Dr. Brenner know anything about exotic matter and how it worked before the Upside Down was created? When would he have studied this and why? As stated previously, the Upside Down was created when 11 made contact with the Demogorgon. So all this exotic matter wormhole bullshit hadn't happened yet, making this entire idea a complete coincidence, if not a straight up contrivance. And how does this hive mind really work? In the finale, Dustin explains that if they kill the Mind Flayer, everything connected to it, such as the Demogorgons, will die as well. So if that's true, then why doesn't Will or the children get killed as well? They are all directly connected to the hive mind after all, yet they don't seem impacted by its death. And since Eleven's powers come from Henry, shouldn't they be gone as a result too? After all, Henry's powers came from the Mind Flayer, so yeah, we're just gonna gloss over that one, aren't we?
I don't know what is going on, but somewhere our wires got crossed.
And lastly, we see that the Upside Down has no water in it. For example, in Season 1, Steve's pool is empty, and in Season 4, the entire lake is dried up. So why is there water in the tank that Eleven uses? Seems to go against everything that was established previously, but I guess we should be getting used to that at this point. Chapter 19, Documented Failure. So why did this pile of crap become the final product of the show? How did the Duffer Brothers settle for this? Well, after sitting through this sad omission, we can begin to understand how this all unfolded.
We went into production without having a finished script for the finale.
In fact, production had already begun. Whole sets were being made and scenes were being filmed without everyone fully understanding just what the fuck was going on.
We are shooting episode 8, which isn't completely written yet, spoiler alert. So we don't even fully know what's going on.
Extension, you know what I mean?
I think so.
And I don't know if you have enough intel from that to raise an alarm bell. Like, I can't get these sets ready in time.
We're not going to get a final script in time for you to do this, so we're going to have to base it on conversations with them.
That's it, yeah. We're just going to have to figure it out.
This issue spread to everything, and it's clear in the documentary that it was extremely stressful for the crew. Everybody seems confused and uncertain because there was nothing to work with. This really took the wind out of everyone's sails as they were racing to sew in the gaps of this ever-growing mess. The Duffer Brothers themselves try to push the blame onto Netflix's demanding deadlines, but it's not like you didn't have 3 years to write this thing, not counting the fact that you've been working on this show for the better part of a decade, yet seemingly you had no clue where you're trying to take it. There are so many clips of the writer's room and it's just fucking crickets. None of them look confident in what they're writing or even seem that interested. Everyone just keeps saying how important it is for them to get everything right, but with no understanding of how to actually accomplish that.
You know, in the Max Z, it is insane, and so climactic.
Wonder about demo fatigue at the...
I don't even know what a chase looks like. It'll outrun them so quickly.
There have to be some monsters in the abyss.
I agree.
There has to be Demogorgon, bat, dog, like something. It's crazy if there's nothing there, I think.
God, I don't know how to play this. The whole episode has to be building towards Eleven is going to kill herself. The longer it goes, the more stories you have to type, the more character arcs you have to type, the more expectations they are with the audience, and how do you meet those expectations but surprise the audience still?
The answer is sitting right in front of you, man. Fucking kill somebody. But apparently they don't want to do that because that would make the show depressing. Yet they subjected us to literal hours of people crying over the pettiest of drama for an entire season. So this is all pretty damning evidence that these guys just didn't know what they were doing. I mean, this ending was so horrible that half the fan base developed schizophrenia and imagined that there was some secret episode coming out that would fix the entire show. For all the people who believed in Conformity Gate, how does it feel to watch these morons show you how wrong you were for believing in them? In the end, all these problems have been building since season 2 of the show, and it all finally culminated into this spectacular disaster. The lack of consequences, the refusal to kill major characters, the unanswered questions, the retcons, and so on. It just kept stacking up until it all came crashing down under the unbearable weight of its own stupidity. And these are the two men that are responsible for all of it.
Ross and I had no interest in writing at all.
Why are you the way that you are?
And it's difficult to say whether it's due to incompetency, stupidity, or plain old ignorance. But I get the feeling that the Duffer Brothers were really done with this series. They just wanted their paychecks, their pats on the back, and to get onto new projects. I'm pretty sure that's all Ichabod Crane here wanted to do. But I have a feeling this isn't going to work out for these guys. Because now this disaster is finished. The fans have embarrassed themselves by trusting them. And after the questionable omissions made in this documentary, I feel like they might be put in director's jail for a while. After all, it's not the first time we've seen big creators crash under the waves of their own success. All I know is that I won't be running to the screen to see whatever project the Duffer Brothers managed to slap their name onto. Chapter 20. Even more questions. Should I take a moment to list all the incomplete plot lines? Or at least the ones I haven't mentioned previously? Sure, why not? Whatever happened to Dustin's girlfriend? We can assume they broke up, but it still would have made sense to at least give her some lip service, considering how much time they devoted to her character in past seasons. Whatever became of Vecna's father? Did the gang just leave him to die alone in this basement despite his innocence? Why did the army just walk away from Hawkins after there was a dimensional gateway there? Surely they would leave a base there just in case another rift opened up, right? What happened to Robin and Vicky in the epilogue? It seems like they may have broken up since Vicky isn't there in the end. Which makes me wonder why their relationship got so much screen time if they were just going to drop this whole relationship altogether. However, I could also ask the same thing about Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve. Jonathan and Nancy's relationship was certainly half-baked, but we didn't even get a conclusive ending with her and Steve. They have been playing up this love triangle since season 1, but in the end they just decided to throw it in the trash. How did Max graduate high school when she was in a coma for a year and a half? Where was her mother during all this time? We know they had a strained relationship, but it's difficult to believe that she would just leave her daughter in this state. Whatever became of Argyle? Where did the deputies go? What happened to Derek's family after they were kidnapped? I guess they were just left in the barn to die? What happened to Dr. Owens? Whatever happened to this whole bully plotline that was set up in episode 1? Did Karen and Ted ever reconcile their marriage? They set up this entire flashback with Henry Creel's time in high school, but they never gave it any payoff. Max never discusses it with Joyce or Hopper, nor do these two ever acknowledge knowing Henry. Why was Holly wearing Under Armour? Where did Karen's scars go? Why is this drawing so fucking bad? Why did I spend so much time analyzing this shitty TV show? Chapter 21. The story that ended terribly. So this is it, I guess. I don't really have much else to say about the final season of Stranger Things. And at this point, I think I've put in more work analyzing this show than the Duffer Brothers actually did writing it. Ultimately, it failed to be coherent, compelling, believable, or even interesting. Everything just felt lesser. Nothing was even close to being as passionate or well made as season 1 was. And I'm not saying a lot of these people didn't put a great deal of effort into this show. It's clear from the documentary that many of the actors and people behind the screen took their jobs really seriously. And they tried to do their best with what they had to work with. Well, at least some of them did. Unfortunately, what they had to work with was just a pile of unimagined dog shit. Something malformed and embarrassing. Which is really too bad, especially considering how big Stranger Things has become. It was one of these culture moments where it seemed like everyone was watching and was heavily invested. And I like that. I like seeing people come together to enjoy cinema. It's actually pretty heartwarming when you think about it. But it only makes it all the more disappointing when it fails this badly. And with big disappointments with The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, Marvel, Star Wars, and now Stranger Things, I just hope the next epic show or film series does more to pay off our collective interest. Something that has a bit more heart in it. Because while all these people may have worked really hard to pull this show off, I know these guys didn't really give a shit. They looked tired, uninterested, and pretty unsure of what they had gotten themselves into. Just two dudes who had the opportunity to make something great, but who ultimately didn't have enough talent to pull it off. Well, goodbye, Stranger Things. For now, at least. Until you make the next stupid spin-off show. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? Yet another series napalmed into oblivion? What a privilege it is to be a modern consumer. And speaking of consuming, I want to thank you all for watching my very long video essay on Stranger Things. I had a lot of fun making it, and it's been great talking to you all about the show. And if you haven't left already, then help support the channel. You know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. Apparently, 96% of my audience is yet to do so. And if you want to help out even more, then become a member. You'll get early access to my videos, priority replies in the comments, and special shoutouts. I spend a lot of time making this content, but working for free isn't all it's cracked up to be. So if you have some spare change, don't give it to starving children in Africa, give it to me. And like always, I'll see you on the next one.
You see these shows that people love and adore, and the ending falters, and they just discard the rest of the show.
You're
goddamn right.